Sup, it's Ed. I made the long one like I said I was going to. So I think in that time I make a pretty good case for a string theory of everything to be the missing link. Prove time travel impossible but warp drive possible. Announce the discovery of extraterrestrial life. Relate relativity to quantum mechanics and thermodynamics. And I do it all without a single calculation. I just walk you through my logic of a story and how it flows in order, and it makes sense to me. And I'll keep expanding on it. But the problem is, you gotta take it all at once. You gotta digest it all at once. You can't do it in chunks. So that at least that's what I'm asking. If you get a chance to watch it, cool. But if you're into that kind of stuff, I'd suggest setting the full amount of time aside. I've tried to give kind of like pieces of it, and that's what I always end up giving the wrong piece at the wrong time. So put together as much as I could, as quick as I could, and putting it out as fast as I can. So I appreciate it, and this is my starry night. What's up, it's Ed. You got music, Ed, my own creativity. So that's how we're gonna do this, right? I'm gonna give you past, present, or future, either through my eyes or my interpretation of expert opinion. All right, so let's take our game of what if, and let's go way back. So let's go into the past. And let's just play a crazy game of what if. And let's say what if everything in the universe is made of a particle, right? There's a particle. Let's just call it something. Let's call it, I know there's been different, like God, particle, and all that. I'm not going to get into religion in this video. I'll make another one because I have opinions of how we can apply this science and still make perfect sense of everybody's own stuff. Like nothing changes. It's just a little extra science. And it's not even new science. It's just we didn't listen to the old science. That's all. So anyway, let's just call it the zero particle. And you know what I said? If I'm going to write my opinion, I'm going to write it in red. So I'll stick with that one. And let's just use the zero particle for the smallest thing that we can measure. And so let's use that as an evolving term. So if we can measure further, it will then be the new zero particle. You know what? Let's evolve that. Let's call it the infinity particle. And a zero particle. So, if we get to a point that we actually do find what the smallest thing is, let's call it the zero particle. All right? So that'll be a starting point. Until we can actually confirm it, though, right, and theory becomes law, let's call it the infinity particle. So the infinity particle will be a moving term that we can continue to use as our understanding of the smallest thing continues to evolve. All right? So, let's make an assumption. A guess. Starting point. If I had to pick the building blocks for everything, what shape would I want to arrange them in? The strongest geometric shape that I know of is a triangle, right? So let's start there, and let's assume that our infinity particle is a triangle somehow. Now let's play what if. So what if it is a triangle? Well, we know things are round, but there's also a lot of people who say things are flat. So if things are round and flat, and we say, all right, let's just use the theory of the well-intentioned a-hole. Let's just assume, for a starting point, everybody is and we'll say everybody here the triangle, infinity meaning everybody, is a, what are we going to call this? A WIA. Hole. So this way you just got to roll with stuff and then trim it back later. But again, we'll get into that, but that's our problem, is there's nowhere for us to be able to do that. So I have to do it here with myself and then hope it reaches somebody later. And all right, it's still fun to me. You know, what's funny too, I'm pretty sure you can throw a zinner in. Can you use tobacco? I don't know. Not tobacco. There you go. All right. So we've got a triangular particle that equals three things in a circle. I'm kind of digging that. Everything's a little bit flat, a little bit round. Kind of depends on how you look at it. Cool. So then how can we incorporate the round here? So if we have a triangle, how can we do round? We probably spin it. All right. I'm going to try to spin this ball. Can't spin that ball. You know I can't spin the ball. And I could probably spin a triangle a little bit easier because it's flat on the bottom. Right? It's got a flat surface, 2D surface for us to be able to, I mean really technically, right, we're all in 2D space here, but it's got a, oh, I guess it's a 1D surface, right? A 1D surface off a triangle. So a triangle has a 1D surface. Maybe that's why. All right. We'll get there. That's the problem, is I keep telling everybody the answer, but because I don't have any credentials, nobody's listening. So it's all good. And again, not new answers, same answers, different interpretation. So now we got this triangle, and we're going to spin it. All right, well, if we just start spinning it, it's gotta have something to spin on, right? We got to make up a point. So let's just make up a point, right? This is where I would put my finger. That's right. I'd spin it right on that. That'd be my infinity axis, right? It's going to come out into 3D space here off the 2D paper. So it'd become three-dimensional because we would just add this depth to it, right? When I talk about it and I think about it, I add a fourth dimension to it. I add time to it in my conscious when I think about it. But we'll get there. So anyway, all right, now I got to spin it. Well, I got to spin it against something. What's something that I could spin it against? Oh, I could probably spin it against another triangle. Let me try that. Kind of like that. So now these triangles are spinning, and they're just like a top on a table, emitting a force. Or maybe multiple forces. I don't know. Let's call it for something, right? Let's come up with something. Let's call it... I'm trying to come up with something clever. Why don't we call it a globe force? We'll call it a globe force. And we'll label it G. G equals globe force. G equals globe force. And we don't know if maybe G's multiple forces or a summation of forces. So now let's just think. If we're just in empty space and top starts spinning, right? Because that's essentially what this is, right? Maybe the spin starts to curve the edges. Because it's spinning so fast and it pulls itself in a little bit. Or maybe it just appears that way and it really is a triangle. I don't know. So anyway, let's just assume that, you know, what's the three body problem in math, right? It's just, you know what? I'll tell you what it is. Sorry, I don't have a Jamie. Whatever. This is my effort to try to prevent being labeled crazy. You can call my ideas crazy, but it's the guy wearing the other hat. So let's look up three-body problem. Clicked on the movie, or the show, which is really good, by the way. Really good show. Got me thinking. All right, in physics, specifically classical mechanics, the three-body problem involves taking the initial positions and velocity of 3-point masses that orbit each other and calculating their subsequent trajectories using Newton's laws of motion and Newton's laws of universal gravitation. Okay, so we have some laws here regarding 3 points moving together. All right, so sounds like we're on the right track, but it's why again, I'm not sure why it's labeled a three-body problem. Seems like whatever. Oh, excuse me. Future and past. I'll put my past on. Seems like a three-body solution to me. All right. So now let's get back to where we were. So we said, okay, just split it into 3 problems. So let's take G and let's make it equal to ABC. A plus B plus C. All right, cool. So we've got G equals A, B, and C. We don't know what A, B, and C are. They could be 3 different forces. Everything seems to kind of work in threes, so we're just using that as an assumption. Again, imaginary in the past, just as a starting point, and we'll see if it doesn't make sense later. I don't care. I'm not trying to monetize any of this. Okay, so now we're in the middle of nowhere. We're spinning, and maybe, you know, let's say that these two are joined together, right? So maybe these two, when they start spinning together, whatever process brings them together, maybe, I don't know, entangles them. Maybe that's a pretty big force between them two. Those two that won't split up, okay? So we'll call those entangled for now, until we find maybe a better word. All right, so now let's keep playing what if, and let's get a little bit more paper going. But there's something about actually writing something with your hand that I think, at least for some people, helps commit stuff to memory. So I like to write it, and I like to have kind of all my thoughts be able to be together. So very similar to, you know, back in regular math class, calculus class, when you're running a multiple page algebra problem, you know, and you missed something, you and a buddy got an answer wrong somewhere, you guys just start working back through line by line, but you got to have your work to be able to do it. So I tried doing it without the work. I tried going into the, you know, whatever. I tried seeing everybody without the work. It didn't work, so I'm just writing the work down. All right, so now we've got this stuff. It's emitting a force in a two-dimensional force in a 3D space. So let's just label G as 2 for right now. It's a two-dimensional force, but our space that we're working in, space, hypothetical space, right? Hypothetical space is 3 dimensions. All right. So now let's just, we got to make an assumption about how fast this thing's spinning, right? We got to guess. Light speed would be a good guess, right? But I mean, we're going to hit a breaking point, and I've got other videos to show you why that's a breaking point. So let's just throw that assumption out for a minute and say we can go faster. So let's just say it's spinning twice the speed of light, and I'm going to not use an assumption. I'm going to use a number that I calculate later, but I'm not going to explain here. It's just the derivative of E equals mc squared. That's it. So you get 2c. So let's just say it's 2c, and let's say 2c equals d. All right, and d, we'll call it dark speed. You know what? No, I don't want to call it dark. I want to call it something different. Let's call it w for warp speed, or warp speed. All right.
So 2c equals w. So let's say this thing is spinning. Spin equals w. And let's say this thing's spinning and it's just shooting pieces of itself out. You know, maybe it only gets to spin at w from some process that happens that I don't have an assumption for. That gets that thing spinning faster than w, and when it spins faster than and when it spins faster than w, it spits stuff out. All right, maybe we can say, and this is a new one for me on this as I work through it. Maybe we can say it spits out different stuff between w and c. So let's say it spins. Let's say the emitting of this force, the friction between the two, emits this g force, okay, which inevitably will slow the inertia over time of this shape, right? And when we do that, let's just say it continues to slow to 0 eventually. We don't know how long. Then let's say let's just take another point C. So let's say the speed at which some stuff spits out is w, the speed at which some stuff spits out is c. It's different stuff, or maybe different levels of stuff, but you know, it's probably all the same stuff at some point. It only makes, I mean, we all know, here. Again, I might not read exactly, but this will be when I'm putting on for what I am interpreting as the scientific consensus. So I'm interpreting the scientific consensus as we already know all of our building blocks that we came from a star before us, right? So if it was just one level smaller, it doesn't change anything. It just gives us a better understanding, right? So let's say the time between W and C. Let's get back to assumptions and imagination and a little fun and crazy. Let's say, let's get some more paper. Maybe I'll edit it, maybe I won't. Maybe I'll do both. Listen, I get that's why we don't listen to everybody. We can't have time for everybody. There's too many people. But I don't mean that there's too many people. I mean that it's an information problem. Where's my future hat? My personal view of the future is very bright. So even with this understanding, okay, we've got too many people, or let me go past present actually. Our feedback loops are broken in our communities. They're totally and utterly destroyed. And whether I'm right or wrong in all of this is irrelevant. And we'll go on to that one later. If I'm right, I have good ideas on how to fix it, and I'm very optimistic about it. That's my whole motivation. I don't want attention. I don't want fame, but I do want the fortune. All right, and I thank you very much. It's been no bed of roses. All right, let's get back to the past. Okay. So now we say that something starts spinning. Things happen. Something gets formed. Spinning on a 2D plane. Tossing stuff out on that 2D plane in 3D space. All right, it starts at a velocity v1 equal to w. It ends and falls apart at a v0. I don't know if I want to call it a v0 though. That's the problem. Let's use v-1 actually here. We'll do v-1 as a starting point in the past. We'll use v1 as our singularity for this. No, I'm sorry. We're going to use the present as this singularity is always the present. That's all it is, by the way. So forget that. We're going to use v negative 1 equal to w warp speed. We need a 0 here. So why don't we call it v0 is equal to 0. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. And then let's just call v1 equal to c. So we can have kind of start having some brackets of when things happen, right? And for all intents and purposes, as I make the observation, my t0 will equal v1. So why don't we put that equals t0. Oh, this is C. I'm like, what the heck did I write? Now let's just make another assumption here. Again, I have to make some. I have to jump around. It's the only way to work through it. So this is the way that I'm going to work through it. Let's just say that everything between everything not equal. So when v does not equal 0, it's alive. Not intelligent, necessarily, just alive. Its core is still spinning. That jives, all right? I know that might be a weird, but just, again, I would love to hear maybe if you don't like that one, maybe give me an additional or more specific definition that you would like to propose. Because I'm just picking a starting point, right? This is all I've done. I've approached this from not a mathematical perspective, but a philosophical perspective on accident. And just happened to be a nerd. So, all right. So let's say that's all alive. So now we got to make another assumption, right? And let's just say that the first thing that happens in the life sequence. Let's just nah, I don't want to do 3 phases on this one. So let's just call it a black hole. Let's say warp speed, anything between v1 and w is ultraviolet, right? So W minus C would be the ultraviolet range. So let's just say that let's just assume that we know light is a particle but behaves as a wave too. Well, let's just assume particles behaving as waves, all right? So again, this is all based on an assumption that everything is a particle moving in a circular motion, probably knocking into other particles and producing waves. All right. So once this particle goes faster than c, or groups of this particle, right? Maybe it's got to be specific structures or groups, I don't know. But let's just say when this particle is moving in the ultraviolet, that it's still emitting the same stuff. It's just a different frequency of it. And what is frequency? I'm pretty sure I have it up here. Frequency, the rate at which something occurs or is repeated over a particular period of time or in a given sample. So rate at which something occurs. Rate of change, speed, velocity. However, it just depends on exactly how you're defining it. And we've already shown in my other videos that physics has mathematics has definitions, physics has definitions, general English has definitions, and I mean we're just working in one language here. Not really, right? And that's the problem, is we're not kind of acknowledging that these are different languages and that we need. It's not the information; it's the translation of it. And again, I don't really give a shit. I'm just trying to explain this stuff. All right. So now this particle, when it's moving faster than c, but less than w, it's in the ultraviolet. And let's say when it goes w or greater, that then it's warp drive. I gotta use it. I gotta use it. It's too cool, but I'm not gonna assign that. If I get, if this catches on, it's got to be warp drive. All right. So now let's just say it's a black hole. It's spitting stuff out, and it's spinning on a 2D plane. So it's emitting this force in all directions. So we have a point. We'll use a point for the black hole, and it's emitting a force in a 2D direction. And then let's just say it happens somewhere else too. We don't know. I have no idea how that starts, but let's just say it starts, and we got another one, and then we got another one. Right, and in just the right spot, things. So as they hit the forces from each other, the particles that are going out in empty space, potentially empty space, are hitting the forces from the other adjacent or not adjacent black holes and slowing down, right? And so at a certain point, these are going to start really slowing down and start to spin. Right? And stuff's going to smash into each other. It's going to gather. So as things smash and it's gathering, it's building mass, right? It's getting more. But it's spinning. All right? So let's just say that spin turns into a star once it gets enough energy. So now we have stars forming. Probably all different kinds, shapes, sizes. Probably different pressures from different conditions, from the various forces of the black holes that are going. A lot of stuff going on. So let's say that the black hole, and again, we have to just assign a number. I'm not saying this is the right number, but let's just assign a number. So we'll say the black hole is life at the first dimension, LD1. I'm just using stuff. I don't even know if this is going to stick. And then let's say the star is life dimension 2. Now what happens? Well, in my experience, everything's a little bit beautiful and a little bit scary, right? So I'm sure we can imagine the scary part of what's going on here. Let's try to imagine the beautiful part of it. So star forms, and it's probably spinning like that. Star spinning. So as it's spinning, it's probably doing the same thing. So I'm thinking everything probably imitates itself, and that's an assumption that I'm going to use as we keep going here. Also very important to note that I am using the Judge Judy rule of logic, which is if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not true. So that's just an important caveat. I want to work into this. Caveat's not the right word. You get what I'm saying. Maybe it is the right word. So now the stars are spinning. And let's just use the same graphic, right? So the star's spinning now, and it's spitting stuff out. So, again, don't know if it's the right number, but let's just use C as the starting point for the spin of the sun. Equals spin C. So, and this is equals spin W. And I'm not sure yet which one needs to be less than, equal to, or whatever, if I broke the brackets out right. That's not the important. The important part is just the concepts here. So now this stuff's spitting stuff out, and then that stuff probably starts to gather in different places and form different stuff. But I mean, what's our next logic? If we went black hole, star, and we just took in the knowledge that we know, my assumption where I would want to go next is planet. Right? So now let's think about how what we know of biological life at the first dimension. Right? That's single cell. It had to split to start the process. Right? So let's just assume that all these other things need to split they get to a certain size and they need to split as well. Or maybe they don't need to split. Maybe they make a unintelligent or intelligent decision to split. I have no idea. But let's just assume that they split. So let's just assume that black holes will birth other black holes. Stars will birth other stars in some capacity. But maybe their children are, you know, like them, but a higher dimension. Right? Maybe their children are like them, but a higher dimension. So let's work on that assumption. And then let's say we've got this star spinning on a 2D plane. And it might be moving around in 3D space, right? The spin is going to be concentrated on a 2D plane. But at its core, at the most beyond microscopic, we have measured, it's probably a little pyramid, diamond type shape, right? How many sides does it have? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's all Terrence Howard's designs and stuff like that. I'm not claiming to know any of them. I'm claiming to kind of be able to explain them together. And again, imaginary, it is what it is. So that thing's spinning, and it's spitting stuff out, sure. Right? And it's probably spitting stuff out at equal to or less than C. And so the black hole, these were our black holes up here. That's probably spinning at greater than or equal to W. Right? So spin W. Yeah, so we got to get rid of that W. W is a good one for a warp drive, but we got to get rid of it on the spin. So not spin. We'll just call it spin B for black hole. Spin S for star. Spin P for planet. So then planet would be LD3. So we've got 3 spins. We said so the spin of the star is going to be less than or equal to C. And the spin of the planet is going to be less than or equal to, we'll use P. Spin P. No, I think planets die. Yeah, I think Pluto is just a dead planet. Stop spinning. Or is almost there, right? I don't know. But so then let's actually use planet as our endpoint at 0. Okay. And yeah, so let's just use that. Those are good assumptions for now. So once this star gathers enough material at whatever point in its cycle, we're saying that it's going to split. It's going to have a baby, right? So if it's spinning on this 2D plane, I'll do another drawing over here so we have the star spinning. And again, maybe that, in relative to 3D space, that thing might be moving all over the place. It's probably interacted by a number of degrees and a number of dimensions that is probably what we would consider infinity. It's probably a huge number that nobody is, it's not worth counting up to, at least not yet. Maybe some of our stuff might be able to now. So the black holes are popping out other black holes once they get to a certain point, probably over this spin rate, right? It's probably once you exceed that spin rate. It's probably from a bunch of factors, probably luck. You're right. You probably got to be in the right place at the right time to exceed that spin rate that we've set as our limits here. And when you do, you probably pop out a little guy. Something splits off, boop, and maybe this can happen over time, boop. But it would obviously, it would make sense that it would be moving along that 2D plane, boop, and kind of going out away from it, right? And that maybe this force is still acting on this, on those little babies, right? But maybe those little babies also have elements of their own lives. Again, my assumption, my assumption is I don't think any of this is intelligent. I think intelligence is an accident, and we'll get to that in a minute. But a really awesome, my whole thing is a happy accident theory of evolution from a misapplication of string theory. So I'm just rebuilding string theory here, and that's all I'm doing. String theory works mathematically. It's just what dimension you apply it in. And that's what Terence Howard pointed out. And again, I'll get to that, but I say any one piece of it, and everybody just shuts down. So we got imaginary Ed trying to get through it. So we got a star. And it's popping stuff out. Maybe it's on a cycle. Maybe it's not. And then let's say the same thing can happen to those planets. Right? Maybe when it exceeds spin P, but a spin between P and C, it also pops out its own little babies. Boop. Those babies would probably be spinning too. And those babies should be considered, again, I don't think intelligent, but alive until they stop spinning. And then that's the point that I think we can assign dead. Like a space rock that's just floating, right? Like I think of that as a dead body of a something or a piece, you know what I mean? But it's just like as it goes into the ground, right? Everything is everything. And I know that that's a silly thing to say, but it really is. If we just kind of really try to repeat the patterns, it all seems to make sense. So again, each of these things, as they're spinning at their core, that diamond core, that pyramidal core, I don't know which, whatever. I think Terence Howard knows how many sides it is. As long as it's spinning, it's emitting this G-force. But that's going to change over time. And again, I'm not going to get too far into time in the definition. I'll do that later, right? But time is a concept that we need. Like, things are happening. It just might be different than how we're measuring them. I don't think you can go back in it. There's nothing to suggest that you can go back in it. And in fact, there's a lot of information, or there's a lot of signs that are pointing at the idea of being able to go back in time being embedded into our educational institutions. I'm dead serious. Oh no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I take that back. I'm assuming, I'm making a guess, that's the root cause of the mass psychosis, and that everybody really is in a mass psychosis, and that's why it's so hard for me to get this through to anybody. Because it's not beyond anybody. I'm drawing with a marker on a piece of paper, and I haven't done any math yet. I've only assigned definitions to variables, which are really just symbols. Again, letters, symbols, numbers, whatever, right? It's just how many things they represent. So we can apply the same string theory to all of it, kind of watch where it goes, and assign the dimensions as levels of evolution, as levels of life, as all of those things. String theory is the theory of everything. It's what it is. All right. So we got that thing. We got that thing spinning. We got some little things popping off of it. There's probably a bunch of stuff happening in different ways, in different places, from different times, different folks, for different strokes, But maybe, just maybe, every once in a while, that bad boy floats into a real nice spot, real comfortable distance, to where something else can happen, another happy accident, right? Maybe on that surface, maybe there's some, the building blocks that are already there, maybe they're ready, maybe they're not. Maybe you just get the right ingredients that come in over time. But if I'm making a guess, and again, I can't get to all the assumptions right now that support this guess, but my guess is that fungus came before biological life. So I'm going to assign, what do we say? Well, let's call moons. We were going to call moons life dimension 4. All All right, because they're basically they're a planet baby, right? So this is just, and I think you could apply the string theory in a lot of different ways on this. This is how I'm applying it to kind of like the concept of life and consciousness and blah blah blah. So I don't think these things are conscious. I think conscious is a byproduct of a happy accident within biological life. So let's just say on this place, maybe the right ingredients happen, maybe the right stuff happened, maybe a nice lightning bolt hit at the right time and turn the right ingredients into the right stuff for them to just all be there together, right? And maybe the byproduct of this process was additional building blocks for the next level, right? So let's call, I don't know if I want to do electricity. Right, these are gonna move, so I'm just gonna pick a number and go. So I'm gonna call fungus, I'm just making a guess, I'm gonna call fungus LD5. Because my hypothesis that I'm trying to test here is that the fungus came first. It had the ingredient, like mushrooms and stuff, right? And it's not crazy. I mean, look at the roots, right? Like, it looks like a lightning bolt. I'm guessing a lightning bolt struck some of the ingredients. Some other ingredients were around. And then fungus was able to grow. I'm not saying that fungus is intelligent. I think we have to separate intelligent and conscious. So actually, yes, I would say fungus, I think, is intelligent. I don't think there's anything to indicate that it's conscious. I think humans are probably the most evolved level of consciousness. I think if there was, this is what we say, like if there was life out there, we would find it. And I think if there was more conscious, like a higher dimension of conscious life out there, we would. But the problem is that we've interwoven time into space when we do this, like as a tangible thing. But we know time is not a tangible thing. It's conceptual. I'm keeping my imaginary authentic self through this, because I've tried every other way. So I'm just making the video, and I'll clean it up over time. But this is what makes sense. So I'm gonna keep going for a minute. So boom, lightning strikes, turns something into something. The fungus is able to grow on it. It's able to, everything eats, everything shits, right? Everything poops, everything eats, everything poops. So the fungus poops out some additional building blocks that we need. I'm thinking water, maybe carbon, I don't know. But I'm thinking that fungus primary energy source, where all the other, so above or less than LD4, I think the force is from the spin. I think that's from the spin. And this is where I would limit intelligence. I. Capable of novel decision making. That's how I would put it. I would say everything else is making decisions, but it's making the same decisions on repeat. Fungus is the first one that's intelligent enough to be able to make an independent decision. So I think it is intelligent, but like I said, I think you need a brain to accidentally trip into consciousness. And again, this is why I have zero clue what this means for God. I started this agnostic, if not atheist, and something kickstarted this. I don't know if it's simpler or more complex. I have no idea. So I would say I'm closer to a belief. Actually, no. There's something started it. I just don't know if that thing is a thing, an accident, of whatever, right? But I don't think it's simulation theory. I think our measurements will disprove simulation theory. We've created simulation theory as a way to try to explain how we can add the fourth dimension in our own singularity. And I know that that's hippy dippy talk, but that's what we do in our conscious, our happy accident. We create time, but time was likely before conscious, right? Because all animals that move, everything that moves, has to have some semblance of time, has to, for it to be able to, for a cat to be able to land on its feet, it's got to have a really good perception of time, really good. And then I think love is its own other thing. Like, maybe cats are learning love, but dogs are born with it. So I think that they're intelligent. I don't know if they're conscious. With the subconscious, full conscious split, and that's another what I believe happy accident. But I don't know if dogs are or not. But they're awesome. They're my favorite. All right, so we got that fungus. That fungus produces some. Again, just gonna make some assumptions. Probably some carbon, probably some water. But whereas the energy source above this point, E, was equal to the spin. So that's how we should measure the time up here. The energy source for this is not going to be the spin. It's going to be whatever it's eating, right? And if fungus came first, like I'm guessing and making an assumption on, then it probably eats radiological energy. Eats R. Exactly what that means, I don't know. We think mushrooms eat decaying plants and whatnot. I don't know exactly what they're feeding on, but my hypothesis and my assumption is that they're actually feeding on a different energy source than we really understand. It's not a biological energy. This is not biological yet. This is fungal. But I think it poops out just the stuff that if you're just in the right place with the right stuff at the right time, then maybe you get really lucky and you get LD6. Biology. So I think that there's many Big Bangs. I think there's probably one single Big Bang. It's space's singularity. Don't know if there's other realms, but I don't think dimensions is the proper term. So then we have biology. So how does that happen? Well, I'm going to guess, again, on assumption, this lightning strike put the right stuff in the right place for the right time for fungus to form. Fungus let out the right stuff at the right time for biology to form, and then you needed a little bit of luck sprinkled in on top. So that's where I think you need the right amount of, we're just going to call it biological energy. And I think biological energy is going to equal R plus, I don't know, I'll just say F for food. And that would make sense. We need to get in the sun, right? I would imagine we're doing our own kind of photosynthesis. The byproduct is probably melanin. You get too much of that, and, things can go wrong, right? But where I think that this happens, right? You have your food and you have your, I think when you get lucky, the water that's gathered on the surface in just the right time, at just the right place, and just the right luck, get some light shown through it. These building blocks traveling at the right speed, and maybe it slows it down enough for us to be able to get another energy source, right? To extract the next level of it. So this is where I would imagine plants formed out of the single life. So we had the right stuff at the right place at the right time for that single cell. But I think plants started separately, right? I think they're their own. I think they're their own thing. I think they're a different type of biological life. So let's say Let's say biological. Let's refine this. Let's say plants. And F equals R plus. We'll say food 1. This is the problem, right? You start running out of variables. So food 1. And then, yeah. Let's say E. Let's say what it eats. E, energy. Right? But let's call it E1. No, we can't. We got to say the spin's E1. The spin of a black hole is E1. The spin of a star is E2. The spin of a planet is E3. The spin, or not, then I mislabeled. So let's say black hole spin. E1, black hole spin. E2, star spin. E3, planet spin. E4, this is when the fungus starts to eat, and so it's going to eat radiological. But I don't think it's spinning anymore, so we're just going to call it R. I think that's like a evolutionary step that we're missing here. The missing link. It's a lot of missing links. So E4 equals R, and then E5 would equal plants. And then E6 would equal animals. Right? Because E6 is going to equal the other ones together. So you're going to need all of the previous dimensions of energy strung together to be able to enable the animal kingdom, right? And then the animal kingdom is going to do its own thing, probably in different conditions, right? But let's admit that each part of the animal kingdom is going to use some of these types of energy. So E for animal, EA for animal is going to equal R radiological plus P plant plus A animal plus F fungal, possibly. Right? And this is where I think you're going to have different merging and different splitting depending on the energy sources that are consumed. I think this big red F on the paper is our failure to recognize the mushroom not as a I mean, sure, there's psychedelic ones, yeah, all right, whatever, but as a real important part of our ecosystem that didn't, what right now we split from mushrooms. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So let's just throw. I'm not even going to work on that in this video. Let me just walk you through the chain of life that I see on Earth. Representing what I think the scientific consensus is, that when you find life, you usually find a lot of it. And I think we've been staring at a lot of it right in the eye and not able to admit it. So, this is imaginary and real Ed at 6:06 on 8/22 local Eastern Standard Time, PM. I would like to announce that we found life in the universe, and it's everywhere, and it's beautiful. There might be some more intelligent than us, but there might be additional realms, right? Time might be an additional realm, but it's not interacting in 3D space. And string theory, quantum mechanics, they all made the same mistake of integrating time as a woven into space itself. No, time is a measurement of the movement of things, right? That's the definition. So we had to start somewhere with the speed of light. I don't think we should change our time systems. I think we could probably get more accurate with them, with this stuff, but we won't, nobody will have the conversation. So I'll list some of my credentials now. Why do I think I'm a philosopher? I mean, kind of like being a poet, you're not until you know it. What makes a philosopher? Well, let me see. Do I still have the definitions up? You can Google it. My definition of philosopher is everybody. Everybody's a philosopher. Singularity. Everybody has their own singularities. It's not, maybe there's another singularity. I don't think this realization, I think what this realization can provide, if people are willing, because again, I'm just a problem solver by nature who just wants to help fix some problems. And I think I have some ideas because our feedback systems are just what's broken. It's too much technology. You can't hear me. You're listening to me, but you can't hear me. It's the same thing we tell our parents. It's the same thing, we tell our kids. It's the same, if you just, I started out on this a couple different ways, right? So my credentials, I'll tell you. So I went to engineering school for 3 years. I dropped out because I couldn't sit still. Am I still in the pay? Yeah, dropped out because I couldn't sit still. Didn't want to be in front of a screen. Failed programming. I didn't understand programming language, whatever. Built patios. Did hard labor for a few years. Loved it. My back, not so much. Probably my posture, if you can't tell, but either way. Was good at it. Loved it. I really enjoyed it. I had something to show at the end of the day, That's the problem. We're missing something to show. But we can find it, I'm doing it now. Anyway, after that, said I need to make some, I'm saddled down with student loan debt from a school that I didn't finish, paying $1,000 a month with no end in sight. Okay, great, that's fun. So I partied with some buddies for a few years. Fortunate enough to get a little bit of trouble, but not too much. Fortunate enough to, get a pretty girl to talk to me every once in a while, but not too much. Actually, probably, I'd argue not enough, but whatever. Or maybe too much, who knows. Either, like the I'm gonna butcher it, so forgive me, but there's the riddle, or not riddle, but the story of the Chinese farmer who son broke his leg. Everybody comes over and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He says, "Maybe," everybody goes to war the next week, and everybody comes, "Oh, isn't that great?" His son didn't, "Oh, maybe." Maybe. He just keeps saying maybe. Things get good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. It's the same thing, getting good and bad all the time. It's how you assign it in the present, right? How you assign the value to the past is what makes it real or not. Just depends on how you define real, right? And I'm sure I lost you. I lost myself in that train of thought, right? Write it down, just for funsies. You might stumble into something. All right, I wanted to run through what I think for the animal kingdoms real fast, because there's 2 more important parts I want to make out of this before I end it. The first, so if we said fungus starts on its own. We said we had the earth spinning, and then we said we had plants, right? And I think you need fungus for this. So I think this gives you, I'm sure I'm missing some stuff in here, but I'm going to just give the key building blocks here. I think this gives you water. I think that's what you really need out of fungus. So that gives you water. Then your water plus your sunlight, your radiological, equals a single cell, if you get lucky in just the right spot. If you overload that P with too much R, too much radiological energy, whether that's from interior to the planet or from the sun, if you overload that P with too much R, that planet with too much radiological, that single cell with too much energy, just like we saw everywhere else, it's probably going to split. And what do we call that split typically when a single cell splits? Well, it's a happy accident. It's a happy accident until it gets unchecked, right? And then it's not a happy accident. Now it's a very sad accident that it's a very sad accident sometimes. But like everything in life, you have to have the sad accidents to be able to find the happy ones. It's all about how you assign it, right? So that's my whole thing in this is I think that this is cancer, right? Let's see. So when that first cell splits, it's unconstrained growth. But cool. That's how we got here. All right. So that plant or that single cell splits. So when that splits, that's when you get a plant. All right. And then I think how do we get to animals? I think they just split separate. You know, eventually in that process. So you'll get plants and then you'll get animals over here, because some of these, like kind of like sharks in a mother's stomach, some of these are going to eat the other ones. And then I think when that happens enough times in enough right places, that's when you get animals popping out. And then in just the right circumstances, you'll have animals, you know, probably starting in the water, because these plants are probably going to start in the water, but things are going to move. Some of them probably eat. So let's call, you know, A1. A1 equals herbivore. Plants and animals equals A2. That's probably omnivore. No, omnivore would be both. So I missed one. No, we're right at A2, but A2 is going to be carnivores, predators. That's going to be carnivores. And then, you know, eventually too, right? Some of these are going to keep splitting, lucky, happy accidents. And then they're going to eat plants again. And then you're going to get A3. Omnivores. Where time gets in the mix, I don't know, because plants kind of move around. You know, so I would say it's probably as soon as you hit that intelligence level that there's some concept of time. There has to be. But it's what it means to have, you know, same deal even between us. Like what time means to you, I don't know. It's just a measurement. So, boom, then we got omnivores. This is people, right? And in just the right circumstance, in just the right luck, you know, the brain wiring, the conscious, the subconscious gets kind of confused and maybe splits and gets a conscious. And the rest is history. And then this one that splits off just keeps trying to figure itself out. That's art. That's all. So this is my art. Just trying to figure it out. I just did, and nobody will listen. It's cool though. I'll probably try to chop this up and do it. I've got some more stuff from here. The real important part that I want to... Yep, still with these on. Okay. Let's do a couple conspiracies real quick. I think pyramids, probably a way to stabilize the Earth and or draw energy. They're definitely energy collection of some type. Probably sunlight. I'll get into history in the next one. Yeah, they're probably collecting energy of some dimension of energy, right? Again, dimension doesn't mean stuff that interacts in dimensions of 3D space. Like that's the problem. It's just we got confused on the definitions. Pyramids, UFOs. I think these animals split too. So you get some on land and some on water. So I'm going to go out on a limb. Wild one here. I'm going to say the aliens just live in Atlantis. Super deep in the ocean. And they've figured out, or just the way that they can tolerate higher physical pressure conditions, yes, but I think also higher radiological pressure conditions. So probably near the vents of some really, really deep stuff, something evolved on its own. And probably gets us really sick when it comes up, either through actual viruses or through radiology, right? Like maybe they are radioactive to a degree that our bodies can't handle. Like, again, just like a fish, when you bring them up to the surface and you got to vent their stomach, right? Like maybe abductions and things like that are real, and they're trying to figure out how to kind of vent our stomach because they're concerned. Again, wild, glasses on. If we did have this globe and we did have this fungus that was really key to enabling this biological life, and these other guys that live deep in the sea that are, you know, call them a long lost cousin, that doesn't speak the same language and always coughs when they come over and get you sick, right? Like if that's just how we look at it and it's not a scary thing, then we go, okay. Because if it, again, I'll get into all the whatevers, but this is just the strongest assumption after working through with the logic that I've already provided here. So if somebody started injecting some extra material into that, and this fungus went deep, and it was bigger than we realized, and it fed on it, it would probably pull it up. So like if we're blowing things up underground that might inject some accidental energy, it would probably make sense that our cousin came over and tried to say, hey man, I think you should put down the fireworks because you're going to blow your fingers off and then I'm going to have to take you to the hospital. And, you know, I might get in an accident on the way. I don't know. Or maybe it's deeper than that. I don't know. Maybe they're at risk too and they're just trying to like, guys, please. But again, assume happy a-holes. Assume happy accidents. Well, assume accidents. And some happy, some sad. Just accidents. But accidents are intelligence. You know what I mean? Intelligence was an accident. And we are just a higher dimension of accidents. And probably the high, you know, I'm thinking the highest. If not, we might be tied with those little guys in the sea. I don't know. Maybe the lizard. I have no idea. But I can pretty safely assume that if there was negative intentions, that I wouldn't be sitting here making this video. If they were able to implant thoughts, I wouldn't have to do this as many times as I had. If they could, you know what I mean? Like if they were bad and they had this technology to fly through, they would. But if they did evolve in the water, like an intelligence, like think of if a dolphin became a person, right? If a dolphin's a monkey and then becomes a person, what would you do? You know, I saw a clip, and I believe is a scientific consensus, that the majority of life on this planet is in the deep sea. So if I wasn't intelligent, even I don't know if they split from us and went to, I don't know, maybe they might be I don't know, but I don't think they're trying to hurt us. And again, as wild as this is, I think I can make this make sense with all of the religions, in a fun way, like in a cool like everything's magic until you understand it a little bit more. But magic's never dead, right? Just because the magician shows you the cards, I still want to see a new trick. There's a lot of new tricks. There's a ton of new tricks, but society is feeling extremely frustrated from doing the same tricks over and over again. And there's a lot of people, you know, I feel really bad for a lot of the people that weren't as lucky as me. I feel bad for a lot of the people that aren't as lucky as me, to have the support system that I've had, you know, to be able to make it through life, you know. A lot of people have been concerned about me because I've been working on this, and I appreciate the concern. It's just a fun thing. It's just a fun thing. And the urgency, I mean, again, if I'm right, you know, I just laid out for you why treating cancer with injection of chemo is like, it's like ventilators for COVID. We didn't know any better, and it was, you know, it's like bloodletting. Like we were bloodletting like 200 years ago. We were trying to hold on to ideas that are 20, that, you know, and we could see that something was intelligent 20, 30, whatever, 1,000 years ago. Stuff keeps getting older, right? But we're not willing to peel back a couple assumptions on the variables. So something is wrong with our systems. And I really believe that we can use some of the quantum computing systems and some of this discoveries to be able to enable us to build a scaffolding, right? So the quantum computers work on threes, right? So I think we can, and traditional computers work on twos. So, you know, just call them B versus T without getting too crazy. So B versus T, so 2 versus 3. So we can build a three-piece, a tri scaffolding around our B computers if we can pause for a minute and come together on where we need to put our value. Because what I've done here is try to put the value of the information over the value of the product. I do think I can sell the product. I do think I'm on a course to sell the product. But I think the information is way more important than the product. But I think it had to be a normal person. It had to go through just regular life to be able to get here. So I think you need credentials to be able to make advances. But regular people, I don't think I'm super intelligent. I think everybody is. I think it's just all about access to information. I think I just ended up at just the right place and just the right stuff with just the right spin to have the right information at the right time. And I've been trying desperately to speak up on it. So I tried making some additional art too. I made a poem, kind of putting these into riddle. So listen to the poem too, because I just kind of show you how I play with words. And I've always done it just in my head, but it feels good to let it out. So I encourage you guys to let it out. Just let it out in the comments. I'd like to hear. So again, congrats everybody. There's life out there. I really think that we can find a cure to cancer pretty quickly. It's always in something to do with the, we have penicillin from bacteria, right? So, I wrote a thing to Johns Hopkins on this, but I get it. There's too much information to get to I get it. I'm not upset about it. I just want to try to get through. If we look at, what's some of the symbols that last the most, it's that little mushroom with the dots, Amanita muscaria. There's got to be something in the relationship between that thing. Or maybe that's just one of the oldest ones. That's a clue. Maybe it eats the most radiological. Maybe the roots of that thing go the furthest. So you gotta let the crazy thing flow a little bit. So Amanita muscaria pops up everywhere, right? Amanita mushrooms are popping everywhere, all over the world. So maybe the Amanita mycelium goes much, much deeper than we realize, and so we're probably harming it, but we're probably harming everything else in the process too. Just look for the repeating patterns. So listen to my poem. I'm just playing with words, just repeating patterns. So. I hope this finds you at the right time, and I love you. Much love. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Let's say good night moon, good night stars, good night sun, good night sky, good night birds, good night bats, good night trees, good night squirrels, good night moles and voles, good night to the sticky sky. And good night to the possum, and good night to the fox, and good night to the raccoon, and good night to the bunny, and good night to the deer, and good night to the coyote, and good night to the bird. And good night to Grandma and Grandpapa, and good night to Nana, and good night Uncle Anthony, and Aunt Rachie, and Coley, and Jack, and good night Uncle Ernie, and Sierra, and Naya, and good night Mimi, and Jalen, and Janelle, and good night Mommy, Alani, Buddy, Belly, and Thor.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
No.
Okay.
Bye.
Say, let's see, what else? Can I talk cars, trucks, planes, motorcycles, or boats, SUVs? Are you ready for our favorite part?
No.
Are you ready for our favorite part?
No, guys.
You gotta tell everybody. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, say good night, everybody. We love you. Mwah. Mwah. When you're done, you can press. When you're done, press the red button.